God uses unfair seasons in ways that human understanding cannot fully grasp. When life hits you with situations you never asked for, when prayers seem unanswered, when the weight on your shoulders feels heavier than anything you've ever carried, these are not signs that God has abandoned you. These are moments where He is shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something you cannot yet see. It is in the seasons that feel the most unfair that God often does His deepest work inside you. There are times when you look around and everyone else seems to be moving forward while you feel trapped in place. You pray, yet nothing changes. You give your best, yet you feel overlooked. You try to do what's right, yet wrong things keep happening. And your heart whispers, "Why is life so unfair to me?" But what if the unfairness is not an attack, but a divine assignment? What if the very thing you're calling unfair is the tool God is using to elevate you to a greater level of strength and purpose? When God wants to grow you, He often does it in silence. When He wants to prepare you, He places you in seasons where you must rely on Him more than anything else. Unfair seasons are not designed to break you. They are designed to build you. Think about pressure. Pressure shapes metal. Pressure forms diamonds. Pressure builds endurance. The same is true for your spirit. Without pressure, there is no growth. Without a struggle, there is no strength. Without opposition, there is no victory. Unfair seasons reveal what you truly believe. Anyone can trust God when life is smooth. Anyone can worship when doors are opening. Anyone can smile when success is overflowing. But true strength is revealed when you can still trust, still worship, still walk forward even when life does not seem to treat you fairly. This is where spiritual maturity begins. This is where faith becomes real. There are moments in life where you will cry out, "God, why did you allow this? Why didn't you stop this? Why me?" And even though the answer may not come immediately, there is a quiet reassurance in your soul that says, "I am with you in this. I am using this. I am shaping you through this." You may not see it today, but one day you will look back at this season and realize it was preparing you for blessings you could not have carried before. Consider the way people grow stronger physically. Strength never comes from comfort. You don't grow by lifting something easy. You grow by lifting something heavy. The weight that feels overwhelming today is building the muscles you need for tomorrow. Spiritually, it is the same. The unfair situations you are carrying right now are building endurance, resilience, and faith that you will need in the future. God knows what is coming. He is preparing you ahead of time for what He has prepared for you. Sometimes the unfair season is not about the situation. It's about the transformation inside you. God uses discomfort to move you away from things that limit you. He uses delay to protect you from going too fast. He uses disappointment to redirect you towards something better. He uses closed doors to save you from entering rooms not designed for your destiny. Every unfair moment has purpose, even when it feels painful. There are also times when unfair seasons reveal who truly belongs in your life. When God wants to promote you, He sometimes removes people who cannot go with you. This removal feels unfair, but it is necessary. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into the next chapter. Sometimes what feels like rejection is divine protection. God sees conversations you didn't hear, intentions you didn't notice, and situations you didn't witness. He knows who strengthens you and who drains you. Unfair seasons often separate you from the people who would have weakened your future, and sometimes the unfair season is about timing. You may be ready emotionally, mentally, and physically, but God is still aligning the pieces around you. He is preparing the opportunity, shaping the environment, arranging the resources, and positioning the right connections. You think you are waiting on Him, but in reality, He is preparing something bigger than what you prayed for. What feels like delay is actually divine synchronization. You may not understand why things are taking longer than expected, but God is ensuring that everything is ready for you, not halfway ready, not partially ready, but perfectly ready. Unfair seasons also teach humility. They remind you that success is not your achievement, it is God's grace. When you come out of a difficult season, you no longer take blessings for granted. You appreciate breakthroughs because you remember how long you prayed for them. You appreciate joy because you remember the nights you cried for it. You appreciate peace because you remember the storms God pulled you out of. You become grounded, grateful, and gentle. That humility becomes a foundation that God can build great things upon. In seasons of unfairness, your character is tested. Will you stay honest even when dishonesty looks easier? Will you stay kind even when people hurt you? Will you stay faithful even when everything looks uncertain? Will you stay humble even when you feel overlooked? God allows these tests not to punish you, but to prove you. There are blessings on the other side of the test that require a heart that has been refined. God is shaping that heart within you. Unfair seasons also refine your vision. They help you distinguish between what is temporary and what is eternal. They shift your focus from what you cannot control to the one who controls everything. When you walk through an unfair season, you begin to realize how deeply you need God. You learn to depend on Him not just for miracles, but for strength, wisdom, courage, and endurance. You begin to see that His presence is more valuable than any promotion, any success, or any reward. There will be moments when life knocks the breath out of you. There will be days when you feel like giving up, when your spirit is tired, and when your hope feels weak. But this is exactly where God steps in. When you reach the end of your strength, He becomes your strength. When you reach the limits of your understanding, He becomes your wisdom. When you reach the edge of your courage, He becomes your courage. God never allows an unfair season without giving you the strength to walk through it. You may not see it right now, but the very season that feels so unfair is building a version of you that is wiser, stronger, more compassionate, more resilient, and more prepared for your purpose. God is not ignoring your tears. He is collecting them. He is not overlooking your pain. He is using it. He is not blind to your struggle. He is shaping you through it. The unfair season will not last forever. It is temporary, but the strength you gain from it will last a lifetime. One day, everything will make sense. You will see how every delay protected you, how every struggle molded you, how every disappointment redirected you, and how every unfair moment strengthened you. And when that day comes, you will realize the truth. God wasn't being unfair. He was being strategic. He was preparing you for blessings bigger than you imagined. So stand firm. Hold on to your faith. Trust that God is working even when life feels unjust. He sees you, He hears you, He is with you, and He is using every moment, every tear, every trial, every setback, to strengthen and prepare you for the future He has already written for you. Your story is not ending here. This is not your defeat. This is not your downfall. This is your preparation. This is your shaping. This is your strengthening. One day you will thank God for this season, not because it was easy, but because it created the strongest, most faithful, most unstoppable version of you. God uses unfair seasons not to break you, but to build you for the greatness ahead. And He will finish what He started in you. When life stops making sense, when the road ahead is blurry, when your prayers seem delayed, and when nothing around you lines up with the promises you're holding, those are the moments when true strength is tested. Not the kind of strength that comes from muscle or confidence or control, but the kind of strength that comes from faith, a strength rooted not in what you see, but in who you trust, a strength that whispers, even through tears, God is still with me, God is still working, God is still in control. There are moments in life when everything feels uncertain. You look at your circumstances and nothing matches what you believed for. You look at the timing and it feels slow, late, or completely off. You look at the people around you and wonder why others seem to be moving forward while you feel stuck. Life's confusion has a way of shaking you, discouraging you, and trying to convince you that God has forgotten you. But hear this clearly: God has not forgotten you. The silence of God is not the absence of God. The confusion you feel is not a sign that God has abandoned you. Sometimes God allows you to walk through seasons where things don't make sense, not to break you, but to build a deeper trust within you. A trust that doesn't depend on clarity. A trust that doesn't depend on comfort. A trust that doesn't depend on having the answers. Because true strength is trusting God when you cannot trace what He is doing. You see, trusting God when everything is smooth, predictable, and comfortable is easy. Anyone can praise God when prayers are answered immediately, when blessings flow without resistance, when every door opens, when every plan succeeds. But that kind of trust doesn't reveal the depth of your faith. It's in the confusion, it's in the waiting, it's in the struggle, that the real strength of your spirit is formed. When nothing makes sense, you are walking through sacred ground. It may not feel sacred, it may feel painful, unpredictable, even lonely, but these are the seasons where God is shaping something inside of you that cannot be shaped in any other way. These are the seasons that build endurance, maturity, humility, sensitivity to God's voice, spiritual discernment, and a faith that cannot be shaken. God doesn't just want you to believe in Him. He wants you to trust Him, fully, deeply, completely, even when your understanding fails. There will be days when you pray and don't feel anything, days when you do what's right and still suffer, days when you give your best and receive disappointment instead of reward, days when every effort seems to collapse, days when the door you tried to walk through stays shut no matter how hard you knock. These moments are painful, but they are also powerful. They are invitations to a deeper trust. Trusting God when life makes sense is gratitude. Trusting God when life doesn't make sense is faith. And trusting God even when you are hurting, that is spiritual strength. Some of the greatest stories of faith are born in seasons of confusion. Not one person who walked closely with God did so without facing moments that made no sense. The path of faith has never been straight, predictable, or easy. It is filled with twists, delays, unanswered questions, and moments that test the very core of your soul. But it is also filled with God's presence, God's faithfulness, God's wisdom, and God's perfect timing. When life doesn't make sense, something powerful happens inside you. Your eyes shift from the problem to the provider. Your heart leans more on God than on your own understanding. Your spirit becomes sensitive to His leading. You begin to realize that God's plan is wiser than your own desires. You start to see that what you thought was a setback was actually protection. What you thought was a delay was actually preparation. What you thought was rejection was actually direction. Sometimes God keeps you in the dark because He knows you are safer trusting His hand than relying on your sight. You may be walking through a season right now where you don't understand why things are happening the way they are. Maybe someone you trusted walked away. Maybe an opportunity you prayed for fell apart. Maybe your finances are tight. Maybe your health is uncertain. Maybe you feel alone in a way you never expected. Maybe your heart is carrying a weight no one else knows about. You've prayed, you've believed, you've waited, but the answers haven't come. This is where the question rises inside of you: will you still trust God? Will you still believe that He is good? Will you still walk in faith even when everything around you argues against it? Trusting God is not denying reality. Trusting God is inviting His reality into yours. It is choosing to believe that God is wiser than your confusion, stronger than your storm, closer than your fears, and more faithful than your doubts. It is choosing to say, I don't understand this season, but I trust the one who allowed it. I don't know how this will work out, but I believe in the God who already sees the ending. I don't see the purpose yet, but I trust that God does. There is a beautiful truth you need to remember. Your situation does not have to make sense to you for God to work through it. He specializes in using broken things, painful things, confusing things, and unexpected things to accomplish His purpose. He sees the end from the beginning. He knows the peace you are living today is part of a larger picture you cannot see, and the very pieces that feel messy, painful, or unfair may be the exact pieces God will use to bring you into your next season of blessing. Think about how many times in your life something didn't make sense in the moment, but later you looked back and understood why it happened. You realized that if things had gone your way, you would have missed something better. If that person had stayed, they would have held you back. If that door opened, it would have led you into trouble. If that prayer was answered immediately, you wouldn't have grown. If that opportunity succeeded, you wouldn't have learned to depend on God. Trusting God means believing that one day everything will make sense, just not today. There is a strength you gain in confusing seasons that you cannot gain anywhere else. You learn patience, not the kind you choose, but the kind that is forced on you. You learn surrender, letting go of control you never really had. You learn humility, realizing you don't know everything, can't fix everything, and can't predict everything. You learn spiritual listening, hearing God in ways you couldn't when life was loud and busy. And most importantly, you learn to lean on God, not casually, not occasionally, but fully. Because when life stops making sense, the only steady ground you have is God Himself, and that is exactly where He wants you. Not because He enjoys your confusion, but because He knows what happens when you trust Him through it. He knows the strength that will grow inside you. He knows the maturity that will form. He knows the faith that will rise. Some people pray for strength, and God gives them a season where they have to trust Him. Some pray for wisdom, and God gives them questions without immediate answers. Some pray for deeper faith, and God allows circumstances that require them to walk by faith instead of sight. Some pray for a stronger relationship with God, and He removes the things that distracted them. Sometimes what looks like a confusing season is actually an answered prayer in disguise. You may not understand everything life is handing you right now, but clarity is not a requirement for trust. God has carried you through storms before, storms you thought you'd never survive. He has lifted you out of places you thought you'd never escape. He has healed wounds you thought would never close. He has provided miracles you never saw coming. The God who carried you before will carry you again. Trusting God when nothing makes sense does not mean you will never feel discouraged. It doesn't mean you will never cry or question or feel weak. It means that even while feeling those things, you choose to hold on. You choose to stand firm. You choose to believe that God is bigger than your emotions and greater than your confusion. And here is the truth. God honors those who trust Him in the dark. He sees every tear, every prayer, every step of faith, every moment you chose trust over fear. God is moved by faith, not by perfect understanding, but by a heart that refuses to let go of Him, no matter how hard life becomes. One day, this season that makes no sense will make perfect sense. One day, the weight on your heart will be replaced with joy. One day, the tears you cry will turn into testimonies. One day, the confusion will turn into clarity. One day, you will stand in a place of blessing and say, "Now I understand. Now I see why God allowed that. Now I see why that door stayed shut. Now I see why I had to wait. Now I see why He removed those people. Now I see what God was doing." But until that day comes, trust Him. Trust Him deeply, trust Him fully, trust Him with your heart, your questions, your fears, and your future. You don't need all the answers. You just need to keep your hand in the hand of the one who does. Because true strength is not found in understanding everything. True strength is found in trusting God even when nothing makes sense. And with that kind of strength you will not only survive this season, you will come out of it wiser, stronger, and more prepared for the future God has already written for you.